32 H&R Magnum Federal American Eagle jacketed soft point. This is an 85 grain jacketed soft point and 32 H&R Magnum. It's rated at 975 feet per second. So I'm going to test this ammo as if it were self-defense ammo. And the reason for that is because sometimes some cartridges like 32 ACP, 22 long rifle, 32 Smith & Wesson long, sometimes even 32 H&R Magnum, sometimes even 38 Special and 380 ACP. Sometimes those are loaded low enough that, you know, the typical thought of having a jacketed hollow point expanding and getting deep enough, sometimes if you do get expansion, you don't get enough penetration. So sometimes cartridges like this break the rules a little bit, where you kind of do want to use a solid bullet for self-defense. And this ammo came out right around the time that Lipsey's Ultimate Carry J-frame came out, so that gave a way for people to practice with it. But I think this could also be a decent self-defense load. So I am going to use my Ruger LCR with a 1.875 inch barrel, and that will be about the same as using that J-frame, that Lipsey's J-frame, because same barrel length and everything. Not a huge difference in overall case length between 32 H&R and 327, so we're not going to lose velocity based on that. But I'm going to do this test, and I'm going to use my 4.2 inch Ruger SP101 in addition to my 1.875 inch Ruger LCR. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So I'm going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. No denim in the way or anything like that that can potentially clog a hollow point if it were a hollow point. Kind of redundant in this test, but I like to stay consistent. And then I'm going to have a real world simulation here where I'm going to go through 4 layers of denim, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard at the back to represent hitting back ribs. So clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh. So 3 inches and 16 inches is more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in an actual living target. So really what we're trying to simulate here is about a 9.5 inch individual with ribs on the front and back. So I'll do a plain clear ballistic shot, then a real world simulation shot, and then I will shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, so first up, we're going to run this round through the 4.2 inch barrel. It is rated at 975 feet per second. So let's see what we get in my 4.2 inch Ruger SP101. See how close we get to 975 feet per second. 924, 1001, 993, 982, 978, 943. All right, so a little bit erratic for that velocity there. Some of them were pretty consistent, but then that first shot was terrible, and then that last shot was kind of low. So interesting. So I would say we're pretty close to that rate of velocity. Now, same round here through our 1.875 inch barrel. See how close I get to 975 feet per second. .857, 892, 891, 865, 893, 895. All right, so a little more consistent, I would say. And the recoil on this is pretty low. I mean, it's a lot less than shooting 38 Special for recoil. So that's one thing a lot of people like about the 32 H&R Magnum, is it has very low recoil. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these compare. All right, first up, our plain clear ballistic shot, our best potential to get good penetration because there's no rib simulation in there. And if it were a hollow point, you know, best potential to get expansion because there's no denim in the way to clog a hollow point. So let's see what we get here with our best potential shot, plain clear ballistic shot with the 4.2 inch barrel. All right. Let's hit it with our 1.875 inch barrel. Let's go take a look. All right, so that's very, very interesting here. I had to do a second look here, a second take at this first shot here, because I thought maybe it went under the gel block and all that, but no, it stopped in that gel block. And the one with the shorter barrel definitely over penetrated. So that's interesting. And I see that sometimes. Sometimes you see that not just based on, you know, bullet deformation or hollow point expansion, because I don't think either of these expand or deform that much. But what I see sometimes is when you hit the gel block harder, faster, more energy, a lot of times it just puts more, you know, damage into it right here, and it just doesn't over penetrate. And some of this could be tumbling damage, but you know, it's hard to really tell. When we look at this first 3-inch piece, and this is what I call our energy dump piece here, because we can see if we get any energy dumping right away, causing a lot of damage right away. Not a big difference between both of those, but once we get into the main block, there's definitely more damage going on with that 4.2-inch barrel. So with that, we got a good amount of damage, and we went to 16 3/4 inches of penetration. So I'd say that's perfect for, you know, getting what we were looking to get. Really good penetration, not over penetrating. Now with our snub nose barrel there, we definitely over penetrated, and we went to about 24 1/4 inches. So that's not extreme over penetration, but it is a little bit. So that's very interesting to see that perform like that. So let's put on our denim, put in our rib simulations, and see how these barrel lengths compare in our real world simulation. All right, our real world simulation: 4 layers of denim followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics that represents hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, then another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard at the back. So if these bullets go, I would say 3 inches past the back rib simulation, that could indicate they could potentially pass through an attacker from a front-on shot. So let's see how these will do with our real world simulation, our 4.2-inch barrel. All right, let's hit that with our 1.875-inch barrel. Let's go take a look. All right, so I would say these performed ideally. And this, in the first 3 inches, we actually have more damage with our short barrel versus our long barrel. That's very indicative of it starting to destabilize right away. And seeing this mark right here would mean that we are starting to tumble right away. But that's not bad, because it, you know, being an 85 grain bullet, it's not super long. So even if it tumbles, it can still go a good amount of penetration. So if you were testing, let's say, oh, I don't know, 130 grain soft point, something like that, I would say that's probably not a good choice for a snub nose. But down to an 85 grain where tumbling isn't really going to significantly affect its penetration, not bad. So I would say these are performing a lot better than what I've even assumed they were going to perform as. And our 4.2-inch barrel, again, we have almost exactly the same penetration, just a hair less. So our total track goes to about 16.5 inches through our rib simulation with our 4.2-inch barrel. And with our 1.875-inch barrel, we went right to 13 inches. So that's not bad overall. Let's take a look at the rib simulation though. And we can see here what I was saying. With the 4.2-inch barrel, there's a little bit more stabilization. With our shorter barrel, we start to destabilize just a little bit right here. So it started to want to tumble through. So I would say, you know, with the 4.2-inch barrel, very ideal, very, very good. And I would assume that through a 3-inch barrel would probably be about the same, you know, level of good performance. With the snub, you know, it's not great, but it's not bad, to be honest here. So I would say, you know, as a load for one of those little J frames, I would say it's not a bad option, to be honest here, because, you know, that over penetration in the plain clear ballistic shot is kind of deceptive, because, you know, it didn't hit any bones whatsoever, and that's very unlikely. And even so, you know, going that deep would mean that if it were to pass through an average size attacker where you're, for whatever reason, you didn't hit bones, it's not going to have a lot of energy on the other side of that target. So, you know, honestly, not bad performance overall with these. So let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at them. Then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going into plain gel, our 4.2 inch barrel and our 1.875 inch barrel over here. So not a huge difference there. One from our 1.875 inch barrel is marked with 2 dots to indicate 2-inch barrel. And we look at the ones going through our real world simulation. 1.875 inch here and our 4.2 inch here. You can kind of see there with that 4.2 inch barrel that, you know, you can see how that soft point's made. It's basically a jacketed hollow point that is filled in with lead. And for me, I wish Federal would just simply make something like that and release it as a hollow point rather than make it a soft point. But they probably want to have a bigger market into places that you can't buy jacketed hollow point ammo, and also probably if you can't get these in hollow points, you're going to end up buying their premium version of hollow points. But I think this would probably make an okay hollow point the way that it is. But not much you can learn by looking at these close up, but that's a close-up look at those. All right, 14 yards from the target, so I'm just going to see what kind of practical shootability I can get with these. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to get a front sight picture, pop these off as fast as I think I can hit the target, and just kind of see how they feel for me and what the recoil feels like and all of that. So let's see how I can do with our 4.2 inch barrel with this particular load. 14 yards from the target. All right, that thing shoots really, really nice. Recoil is very, very low. Try it on our little snub here. And that shoots really nice as well. So the recoil, trying to describe the recoil here, I would say that this here, recoil on this kind of feels like a large 380 ACP pistol for recoil, or maybe a 22 Magnum revolver, just something like that. It's very, very low recoil. This also is very low. What I would describe this as is probably like shooting a 38 special through a full-size steel revolver, like shooting 38 special through a Smith & Wesson 686, or maybe a Model 10, something like that. So this shoots like that, but in a little short barrel. So we definitely have a lot less recoil in our little snub nose with 32 H&R Magnum versus 38 special. This actually is pleasant to shoot and going to be pretty controllable by most people, as we're a lot of times even 38 special is kind of a handful in little guns like this. So I would say it's pretty good, shoots pretty good. So let me back it up and shoot from some more distance. All right, 40 yards from the target, why not? Let's see what I can do with these 32 H&R Magnum rounds from 40 yards. So 4.2 inch barrel from 40 yards. All right, so I put 5 rounds in there, so that's not a dead round or anything. They are shooting just a little bit to the left for me. So let's see how I can get with our little snub here. All right, so I'm not sure where that first one went, but these are also shooting a little bit to the left and a little bit low. Let me back it up to 75 yards just for fun and see how these will shoot for me. All right, 75 yards from the target, really just for fun at this point. So let's see how I can do with these. Let me fire one single action with our 4.2 inch barrel. Try to figure out where these things are hitting for me. So see if I can do it the 4.2 inch. I don't have a clue where that went. Alright, so they must be hitting low. Alright, so yeah, I think some of those are hitting low. I was aiming at the head on that silhouette when I started making some hits, so definitely hitting a little bit low. Now you'd think this might even hit lower, but not necessarily, because if this leaves the barrel, this is such a short barrel, before the muzzle starts to rise, it'll seem like it's not hitting as low. So I'll aim center mass and see if I can make a hit with this. I think we're still hitting low. So, not better than an average person from that distance. Yeah, definitely harder to hit than with like 38 special from that distance. And I know people that don't watch my channel are going to start laughing. It's all you and it's that short barrel. No, there's a lot of times I'll shoot like 38 special from here and I'll hit and I'll hit and I'll hit. So I think at this distance, it's a little bit much for 32 H&R Magnum with a 85 grain moving that slow. You know, once you go to a certain distance, and you never know what's going to happen once it gets to a certain distance. They can just kind of lose their steam and kind of go one way or the other, or start dropping very rapidly. Just any number of things can happen with lighter bullets from this distance. So I would say, you know, it's a within 50-yard cartridge. So looking at this, you know, I was hoping for this performance that we saw. And I was thinking we were probably going to get it, but with this stuff, you never know. There's a lot of times where I think I'm going to see something and then something completely different happens. But based on my years of experience, I kind of thought, you know, these are working with sub 200 foot-pounds of energy, and they're a very light bullet. And these are all things that are going to contribute to them not penetrating super deep. And that's what I thought I was going to see. I was thinking, well, let's order this target ammo and test it as defensive ammo, because 975 feet per second, 875 or 85 grain bullets, these aren't going to penetrate that far. And they really didn't, except for that one in plain gel, specifically from the snub nose. So either way, this performs really well. And even if you look at that little bit of tumbling with the snub nose through the rib simulation, that was fine, because the bullet is so short, because it's light, it's not going to tumble in such a way that it's not going to penetrate enough. So we had adequate penetration with every one of these shots. With the 4.2 inch barrel, we had, you know, perfect penetration, just shy of hitting that 18-inch mark. So all across the board through a 4.2 inch barrel, perfect for self-defense. With the snub nose, you know, they do destabilize a little bit quick once they hit the target, but as we saw, it doesn't make that big of a difference. So honestly, I would carry these. And being federal rounds, all the primers were sealed, so that means that they're gonna last a long time, same way that carry rounds would. I don't know if they were sealed at the bullet end, but either way, I think these would be fantastic carry rounds, because you're gonna get that penetration you're looking to get. You're not gonna get some expansion that's gonna limit its penetration, and yet it still did pretty well and did some good damage in there. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.